What you are about to hear will blow your mind and give you six-pack abs without even exercising.
Pull up a bar stool and relax.
Hey, who wants to have some fun?
You've made it to Happy Hour with John Gaskins.
Oh, no. Not again.
Get ready for entertaining local and regional sports talk that will change your life. Or not.
And by the way, when you're telling these little stories, here's a good idea. Have a point. It makes it so much more interesting for the listener.
Here's your host, John Gaskins.
Here's Johnny. Hello! Ah!
I'm back, baby! I'm back!
All right, it is a Monday, one of the most pleasant days of the year outside here at Sioux Falls. For those of you consuming this 2 days from now, 2 weeks, 2 millennia from now, it's a wretched 97 degree, 106 degree index day. Who cares? Because
milk was a bad choice.
That's why we have beer and we get to drink it today. One of my best friends in Sioux Falls and in South Dakota, one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. You can't have a discussion about the best play-by-play announcers in this state without this man in the conversation, because he's been at it for a while now. And you've done a lot.
Yeah.
South Dakota State women, Sioux Falls Canaries, Sioux Falls Storm, and for we can say over 15 years, South Dakota State basketball tournaments for SDPB.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, all these fun things that I've gotten to do.
Yeah.
But get to do it in my own backyard. It's pretty cool.
It's not amazing.
Yeah.
You've earned it. You're pretty good at what you do. By the way, he is J.J. Hartigan, the current voice of the Augustana Vikings, football and basketball, radio and TV. You've been with Augie mostly in a TV role, but for at least one season, now 2, in the radio role, and you're back this year. So
yeah,
congratulations.
Yeah, it's crazy how it starts as a tape-delayed video stream type of deal, and now it's evolved with streaming and everything else that's gone on, and getting an opportunity to do radio with Augie is great too. But they've welcomed me in with open arms, and it's really felt like home since the day I've gotten there, and it's still a fun job. So, we could just bull right into it, because we lost Jeff Fylling, who will forever be known as the voice of the Vikings. This past spring, and of course we had Jeff on our show about a year ago. He had popped up and it appeared had beaten cancer, and then it just attacked him all of a sudden. Bing, in about a week's span, we lost him. And it's an interesting position for you, because, again, we've had new technology that has allowed 2 guys to do Augustana games. Jeff was always the radio guy, and they had you at least for home games, football, basketball. Any other sports? I do a little baseball.
A little baseball?
Yeah.
Okay. But so JJ's been on Augustana calls for a long time, but then he took over Jeff's spot when Jeff was ill and battling cancer a couple of years ago. And now you're the guy again. And that has to be interesting for you, because it's a job that a lot of people would love to have, but not under those circumstances.
Yeah, you never want it to be under these circumstances, obviously, and to lose Jeff was such an integral part of not only the Augustana community, but the sports community in South Dakota as a whole. He was a part of all of the Sanford events that would go on, bringing legends in. He would court a lot of those players to come play golf, and then through that turned into relationships with the hospital system and things like that. But you never want to take over a position because somebody gets sick, somebody gets injured, whatever, passes away. It's such a huge shoe to fill, and you can't ever live up to their standard, because he was the voice of Augustana athletics for 40 years. Anybody who went to that campus, anybody who played for Augustana got to know Jeff, and he was a friend to just about everybody. And if you ever passed him in the hallway and said, "Hey Jeff, how you doing?" his answer was almost always, "It's the best day of my life." And At first, I thought he was kind of, just tongue-in-cheek, kind of saying that just to get by.
Sometimes you couldn't tell with Jeff. He's one of those dry-witted guys who, are you being sarcastic or not? Everybody loves to say, living the dream, and when we say that, we're usually being sarcastic.
Right.
But anyway.
I think Jeff truly meant it, though. Yeah. I think every single day was the best day of his life, and he lived it to the fullest. And to see him get to come back and do Augustana football this last year on the radio again, to see the glow that he had when he was in that press box, it's something that I'll remember forever, just to see him reach that point, getting through all of his chemotherapy and getting through everything that he had gone through. To earn that right to get back into the press box was pretty cool. And he's still the only guy aside from Mike Hendrickson that I've seen smoke a cigarette openly in a press box or anything like that. But I think he's earned that too over the years, to be grandfathered into some of those rules and stuff. But those are the little things that I'll definitely miss about Jeff later on. Maybe not the smell of the cigarettes, but it was always one of those unique things. You could always know where he was when he was in the press box for a variety of reasons. So.
How is he? It sounds like you've given us a glimpse, but how is he with you? For one, when you're coming in and you're working the TV side of things, the streaming side of things, he's doing the radio. But certainly when he was unable to do either, and you were kind of in the role of taking over for him for a bit.
I mean, I have mentors everywhere around South Dakota, right? He's not just another in a long line of guys that were basically lining up to help me along the way as a young broadcaster. I think that's the really beautiful thing about being in South Dakota. You may not get that anywhere else, but there are people who will, if you just make a phone call, you reach out to them, say, hey, listen to my audio tape, tell me what I can come up with. They're going to be there to help you out. They're going to give you advice. It's a brotherhood that I think is very different from other communities, and I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the opportunity to pick his brain and learn things, and he introduced me to people at Augustana that I probably would have never had a chance to meet otherwise. So just opening doors for me was pretty cool, and it's not always easy because I'm sure he felt footsteps on the backside, wondering if somebody's trying to take his job, which definitely wasn't the case. I didn't want his job. I wanted to be a part of Augustana, but it's just a different dynamic, kind of trying to break down some of those walls and barriers. But once we got to know each other, got to have an understanding of who we were and what our roles were going to be, our relationship was great.
By the way, you're hearing some exuberance behind us here at Gibbs Sports Bar on a Monday, where usually we're pretty safe in places like these at about 2 o'clock, especially on a Monday. When it comes to it being fairly quiet and a little dead at that time of day, between lunch and dinner and happy hour. But the World Cup's going on. It's the world's game. So, we have a bunch of guys behind us who they're not even here to watch one of their own countries play. They're watching Brazil and Japan because you don't have to explain it. It's Brazil and Japan playing soccer. So this, like other venues we've been doing shows from the last couple of weeks, I didn't know it until I walked in here today, but Gibbs is a place where people, why wouldn't you want to come watch a World Cup game here? You can see it if you're watching, or if you've been here, you understand that they know how to do it right here with TVs, very nice, vivid, giant TVs around the whole place. They got the sound of the game on because it's a real sports bar that plays sound of the games. So big thanks to Dan and all the folks at Gibbs on the east side of Sioux Falls, East 26th Street, the old Cherry Creek Bar. Also, this side of town kind of needed a few more restaurants and bars, and they got it within the last couple of years.
No, I think it's a great addition. I think it's perfect, and I'm just glad to find out that they're watching the World Cup and not Wimbledon. I'm a tennis guy, but I think I'll take the World Cup over that just about any day.
I don't know if they'd be packing it in for Wimbledon here, but it's on if you're a tennis guy and you want to watch it. The last question along the Fylling lines is this. He had such a distinctive style and personality. I mean, if you read any of the tributes, certainly if you attended the funeral, and I had a chance to talk to some people who knew him as well. I mean, clearly, like one of a kind. Just the personality, the dry wit, the one-liners, was a little bit more of a teddy bear than maybe he let off, all that kind of stuff. And a very distinctive style on the air, which I asked him about last time. And like you always knew, if you were blind and you were just turning the dial on a Saturday afternoon, you knew when you were hearing a Jeff Fylling call. Yep. Yours is different because everybody's is different from Jeff. And he's a beloved guy over there. I think as much for the person as is really good at it, but as much as the person as the guy who called the games. So how, if at all, have you processed that, or following a legend and all that kind of stuff, knowing you're not Jeff, and people should not expect you to be Jeff, and I don't think they'd want you to try to be Jeff.
No, not
How
at
have
all.
you tackled that, if at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting place to be in. I've had the unique opportunity of having to step into, I guess you could say, quote unquote, a legend's shoes more than once. When Steve Emming was leaving SDSU, I was the guy that got the call, and Tyler Merriam, of course, stepped into a more prominent role with the Jackrabbits. I went in and did the SDSU women's games for a few years. And then when the Sioux Falls Storm called, of course, Rich Rosti, the Silver Fox, he was a legend, and he's, I think, the only broadcaster in the Indoor Football League Hall of Fame. So that tells you everything you need to know about him right there. But it's impossible to be them. You can't emulate them. You can't become those people. So just try to be yourself. Just try to call a game that you would want to hear, that you would want to be a part of, while still hoping that you respect the people that came before you and try to live up to their standards as best you can.
Sure.
Not always an easy thing to do, but I would say that if you go into it with people surrounding you that give you encouragement, it makes it a lot easier. And again, I think that's where living in South Dakota helps a lot. There's people that want you to do well. There's people that are encouraging you, putting you in the right spot. And even if you do have to step into a role that's maybe bigger than you in the moment, you don't feel like it necessarily. So.
Cordell, are we okay on audio? Okay. We do not normally have this much excitement going on around us when we are doing our shows here around town. One thing you can always emulate without worrying about copying anybody is passion, energy, enthusiasm, pure joy for being able to do the job. You've always had that. You're a lifelong Sioux Falls guy. So I'm very curious, what made you want to do this? What made you want to do this for a living?
Yeah.
When did you really know this is what you wanted to do, and who, whether it be someone from around here or nationally, inspired you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first and foremost, I grew up just as a sports fan. So being around youth sports, being around this community that embraces sports so much, it's hard not to get excited about sports. So there was always the interest in the back of my mind of just, it'd be cool to have a job in sports as I get older, So thinking about that as I'm growing up. But my grandfather on my mom's side, he was a radio DJ back in the 60s and 70s. In fact, our family moved to Sioux Falls here. He worked at KXRB, a country radio station here in Sioux Falls, spun records, old country music, Willie Nelson, that kind of stuff.
Did he move here for the job?
Yep.
Wow.
And he's moved around everywhere from Aberdeen, Minneapolis to Sioux Falls, and he passed away when I was young, but I always heard stories about the things that he did, the people he interacted with, and the jobs that he had, and that always stuck with me, something that might be something I want to do, kind of carry on a family tradition, that kind of thing. So there's some family ties in there too, but my parents, they took us to sporting events all the time. We were at Skyforce games, had season tickets, went to Canaries games all the time. Really, the Skyforce is probably where I realized that that's what I wanted to do. Watching these people put on a show in front of, at the old arena, 5,000 fans on
I was going to say, you got a chance to be there when they were in the arena and they could fill the arena.
It was high caliber basketball. I mean, you had guys like Stacey King, who unfortunately just passed away, the Chicago Bulls legend. I got to see Manute Bol play against Daryl Dawkins. Some of the cooler things. I was there for the Victor Page game, which anybody who knows about that at Christmas pulled the fire alarms and kind of had a temper tantrum with a broom at one point and kind of ran crazy. But there was a lot of things there that I grew up being around, and even with all the crazy chaotic things that came with that, I was like, that seems like a life I'd like to have. So it was pretty cool to be involved in all that. And Craig Maddock, Mike Hendrickson, listening to their shows when I was younger, kind of solidified it for me. It's like, okay, if those guys can do it, I can do it. I would love to be a part of that, be a part of whatever they're doing, because they just seem like they're having fun. Every single day they go on the air. And for a guy who's 16, 17 years old, find a fun job that's not hard, that isn't going to be manual labor, doing something you love. Seems pretty good.
Not in an office all day, not having to file those TPS reports.
Cubicles and I would not get along.
Yeah, see, that's why I'm here.
Yep.
I was going to say what age you were listening to Craig and Mike, because I was kind of like, okay, because that's not exactly their demo.
No, not at all. I mean, I was driving home from high school.
I mean, and just to kind of shed light on myself. I'm 47. Matt Zimmer is 45. He and I were playing golf the other week, and some guy who's probably about 80 came up to us and just to say hi. Yeah. And Matt, as we drove away, Matt's kind of like, that's our audience right there.
Yep. You know your demographic.
And not that there's anything wrong with that. Hello to all of our 80-year-old fans.
Absolutely.
But because, 20 years ago they were 60 and 30 years ago they were 50 or whatever. Yep. But you were very young. Because not a lot of people who are that age now, and maybe not even a lot of people that age then. Yeah. They might have liked sports, but they weren't listening to sports talk, let alone local Sioux Falls sports talk. So how did you fall into that?
Yeah, I mean, So I had a newspaper route when I was a little kid, and so I would put my headphones on when I was out slinging newspapers at 5 a.m. and kind of fell in love with the idea of listening to radio, whether it be the Bob and Tom comedy show or, listening to whatever Dan Patrick show was on or something like that. Just kind of started to fall into it. I didn't want to hear the same old songs playing on the radio every single day when I went out and did my job. So just finding a way to keep things unique, interesting. And then you start hearing these personalities. You start thinking, okay, they're fun. I want to know more about them, who they are. And the comedy side of things was probably one of the ones that more than anything was like, radio could be a fun job. You can find ways to be relevant in ways that aren't sports or news and things like that. And so, it was always very interesting to me.
What I liked about radio or this is you can try to be funny or entertaining, but you don't have an audience judging you. Right. You can bomb and you don't have to feel the...
or the eyes staring at you with no smile or laughter. Yeah, that's always tough. Man.
Yes. And most people, I think, consuming this know who Craig and Mike are, Craig Maddock and Mike Hendrickson, but I'm telling you, I see guys at the ballpark who are familiar with this show who are more toward you. How old are you? Do you mind saying?
Yeah, 37.
37, more toward your age, a little younger, or somewhere around Cordell's age. He's 27, who are aware of this show and what's going on, but they there's a reason Sioux Falls has doubled in population in the last 30 or 40 years. There's new people coming in all the time. And so some people aren't familiar. So Sports Talk with Craig and Mike, it was like the first daily sports talk radio local show based out of Sioux Falls. They were a bit like Gary Weckworth, the former Canaries and Stampede owner. He was a sports talk show host in the 80s, but I think it was like once a week. Yeah. They were the first two guys to do it every day. And I wasn't even going to talk about them with you, but you gave me an opportunity just to give people who are kind of new an idea of, I guess, for lack of a better word, how big of a deal that show was for a while. And we're talking circa, they started in 2001, Mike left in 2006, a guy who was Rapid City's all-time sports broadcasting icon, Bob Laskowski, came in here at the end of his career, 06 to 08. I replaced Bob 08 to 11. Then there was Chris Tubbs from 11 to 16. I came back and replaced Chris until we were knocked out by the pandemic in 2020. But Craig was the common denominator, but people remember it most fondly from Mike's days because Mike was already a big name in town and still is. So that's a long way of setting it up and just how big of a deal that show was for a bit.
Absolutely. And on another note, I mean, for those two, Craig and Mike, I mean, beyond their show, all the state tournaments that they covered, high school football, basketball. I mean, they were in your home, whether it was on the radio or on TV, for just about every big sporting event. And even when I was in high school, they were going into the high schools and broadcasting the games live, like you do still to this day. I mean, they were as involved in local high school and college sports as anybody in the state of South Dakota.
Yeah, and not that they're not a big deal now, but they were probably a bigger deal then. Yeah. Would you agree with that?
100%.
I mean, you've lived here longer than I have, so you can tell me. But I think the Jackrabbits and the Coyotes have gotten to be a much bigger deal since they moved to Division I. Yes. Especially the Jacks, and they're able to fill a 19,000-seat football stadium now. That would have been laughable back then, 15 years ago. But when they were both again, tell me if you agree, more in Division II, like Augie and USF still are, it kind of made the high school, they weren't as big of a deal. So everybody just kind of had a piece of the pie here, and high school was a pretty big deal.
Oh, absolutely.
To it, right?
I mean, that was one of their bigger focal points at the time. Obviously, as you mentioned, there was a lot of Division II excitement going on, NAIA athletics, but I think high school athletics in the late 90s, early 2000s was probably at its peak as far as popularity. I mean, when we went to the state tournaments, student sections were packed to the brim. Kids would skip school and go to the games. Now, if there's no school at the state tournaments, most of those kids are probably sitting at home watching it or playing video games or whatever they're doing. But you just don't see that student following like there used to be. And I think there's still in small towns quite a bit of following with their community teams and things like that. But at least in Sioux Falls and in the bigger markets, you don't see that passion like it used to be. And they provided a lot of that on a daily basis, whether people wanted to know like what was going on after a Friday night game with a coach's show or whatever. Craig and Mike were there for it. I'm sure you loved those coaches shows, but the 9 a.m.
It was
on
a love
Saturday.
hate.
Yeah. But
didn't like the time of day that I had to wake up and do it, but I enjoyed talking to the coaches. And but that's a very micro example of how big of a deal it kind of was. I think that show at some point in time was like, for high school enthusiasts, of which there used to be more, was kind of a big show to hear the coaches talk about the game the next. So would you wake up and listen to that?
Ooh, not if I was waking up.
That's where you draw the line.
But the Saturday morning stuff was tough. Man. Especially if we did games on Friday night, not leaving Howard Wood until 10:30, 11 o'clock. That's a tough turnaround.
Yeah, sure. Oh, you're telling me. Yeah. But like you went to Lincoln High School. What were you much of an athlete? Did you play sports? Were you like me? You kind of knew like, I'm not an athlete to be good enough to make varsity on these teams, so I'm just going to get into sports in another way. Yeah. Or were you an athlete? Pretty much the way you went through it. I mean, I realized after sophomore year that I probably wasn't going to go very far in football, and so that hung up the shoulder pads after that. Played baseball through my junior year, and even then I was like, I don't see a future beyond this probably in high school, so what can I do? Yeah. Started falling in love with music and going to concerts and things like that, and so I kind of took a pivot. Rather than being the sports guy, I kind of turned into more of the hippie and that kind of thing. Nice. But, I mean, I had long hair, tie-dyed shirts, the hemp necklaces, the works, all that stuff. So I embraced that lifestyle fully, and still was a sports fan, but just kind of enjoyed being a fan, and played high-Y basketball all the way through, but nothing that was competitive by any means. So, guess what, JJ? All the music and hippie stuff. Yeah. I was that too in high school. You turn away from sports, and was Lincoln any good at the time in any of those sports? No, they were probably the least of all of the Sioux Falls schools at that time. And I mean, the coaching staff did well. The boys basketball team was good at that time. It seemed like every year Lyle Pearson or whoever was the coach after that had a team that was capable of making a state tournament or did make a state tournament every year. Aside from that, sports was not Lincoln's main objective, and we had 200 kids or whatever lining up to play trumpet for the band because they were going to the Macy's Day Parade or go to the Rose Bowl Parade, and so we were definitely a band school, and the band kids were the cool ones. But sports definitely changed right after our graduating class left, and my sister's senior class, 2009, with that boys basketball team and everybody else that was there on that campus at the time. That's when Lincoln really kind of turned around. That's when I got to Sioux Falls. I got here in 2008 and called Lincoln winning a state football championship. I think that was their first ever. Aaron Beavers was the coach, and then they went right into a 25-0 basketball team. They were rocking and rolling. But it goes through ebbs and flows. By the way, back to Craig Maddock and Mike Hendrickson, I think they both got in trouble at some point in their careers for making snide comments after halftime of a Lincoln football game back in their leaner days, when all of a sudden more than half the crowd would thin out right after the band played. Isn't at halftime. Weird how that would work? Yeah. And of course, so did I. Once I came and I hopped on that. It still happens, but Lincoln's been far more competitive in football. More people do stay. Still quite a band there too, by the way. Of course, I mean, Lincoln's always been known, great academic school, incredible band, but arts in general. Oh yeah. And so, if I asked you this, it's been 15 years. Sure. I can't remember. Where did you go for your post-secondary education? So after I graduated in 2006, I had no idea what I wanted to do. Really, I had teachers who were trying to get me to go in and being an educator, working as a teacher. I kind of wanted to just take a year off and just see what the world looked like for a bit, so that's what I did. Okay. But I took a job in the Sioux Falls School District, working in the early childhood department, worked with kindergarten-age kids, helping them kind of develop, and just gave me an idea that, okay, teaching's probably not for me, at least at that age and at that time. I didn't want to do it. So that kind of changed things, and I reached out to my
video media teacher at Lincoln High School, actually, Bob Pritchard.
Okay.
And he had just taken a job at Iowa Lakes Community College as the media coordinator and teacher or professor down there in Okoboji. So I'm like, Okoboji College could be kind of fun, find myself at a lake every weekend. During the winter, they've got, the winter games, walk out on the ice. And
do they?
Have all kinds of frozen fun out there. So there was no shortage of fun in Okoboji at this 2-year school. And so I'm like, I'll do that, see what happens. We ended up setting up a live stream service for the basketball and volleyball teams at that time, where there were no other schools that had any sort of live streaming at that point in 2007. So it was kind of a test run just to see what we were capable of. Yeah. That turned into doing some play-by-play just to see if it would work. Yeah. And then I met the baseball coach down there at Iowa Lakes as well, and he was the manager of the Mankato Moondogs, which is where I got my first broadcasting gig. So I owe a lot to Iowa Lakes. It was just a 2-year school, and I thought I'd just go to get my gen eds out of the way kind of deal, but it ended up being a big part of the fabric of who I am. So,
so the Moondogs were your first kind of post-college.
Yeah.
And this was, is this amateur wood bat, college amateur wood bat?
Yeah, so the Northwoods League is summer wood bat league, kind of like the Cape Cod League out on the East Coast. It's just younger players, freshmen, incoming freshmen or sophomores generally would go to the Northwoods League, and then you'd get the elite players or like juniors that would go out to the Cape Cod League and really show what they did before they entered the draft kind of thing. So this was a good place for me as a young broadcaster to kind of cut my teeth, get an idea of how to do games on a daily basis, that kind of deal. But that was a whole different brand of learning how to broadcast, because baseball is every day. And if you're doing that all summer long, all over Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, you get thrown into what minor league sports is like in a hurry. So.
You're in a league like what? Mankato, St. Cloud, Bemidji,
Duluth,
Winona, stuff like that.
Battle Creek, Michigan. I think they've even moved into
Wisconsin.
North Dakota now a little bit. But Bismarck, I think, has a team. But
I mean, do you have any young broadcaster funny stories of something that happened or something that happened to you that's particularly memorable in those early days?
Well, the Northwoods League was a beast. So, I mean, getting into Canada was always an interesting one. They had a team in Thunder Bay, Ontario, and so there'd be guys on our team that were from Australia, things like that. And so getting those guys across the border, telling them, hey, you can't take big pucks of chewing tobacco across the border because that's a trade in good thing.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, one guy tried to bring a whole sleeve of chewing tobacco back with him, and they stopped him at customs and said, not so much.
Wow.
So, there were just little things like that. But my first day as the Mankato Moondogs guy, they always brought in a former Twins legend or somebody from the Minnesota sports community to throw out the first pitch on the opening day game. Mudcat Grant was our guy the first day. And I'm shell-shocked. I'm a Twins fan. I knew who he was. I'm a new broadcaster. Luckily, they had me partnered with one of the local radio guys there, Mike Sullivan. We called him Sully. He did hockey in Mankato for Minnesota State for years. He's a really good guy. He drove the ship that night. I wasn't going to be the guy to ask Mudcat Grant a bunch of questions as a green, 19-year-old broadcaster. What did you think about playing back in the just weird questions that I would have had no business asking him kind of deal. So meeting a baseball legend my first day on the job was a little bit like, oh my gosh, what am I getting myself into kind of thing. But it was a good crash course, man. It taught me what I needed to do to be more professional. Watching a guy like Mike Sullivan go about his business and handle a game while sitting next to a baseball legend was pretty cool. Things like that. And gotten to interview a lot of people along those lines with baseball over the years after that, but that one has always stuck out to me just because it was literally thrown into the fire, feet first kind of thing, and trying to figure it out on the fly. So,
so I've actually never talked to you about this. You seem like you're a baseball first guy. This is a guy who, like our friend Matt Zimmer, you're wearing your Twins hat most of the summer. You're constantly, if you follow JJ on social media, commenting on the Twins. You're still engaged even when it feels like they're completely irrelevant, and a maddening team to watch every day, and at times a boring team to watch. But they just kind of barely keep their head above water. Slugged past the Rockies 2-1 yesterday. And this Moondogs thing in Mankato eventually led to the Sioux Falls Canaries for a few years. But is it? Have you always been kind of a baseball? Like, is that your first love?
I mean, as far as being a pure sports fan,
Yeah.
baseball is definitely going to be the one that I'm always going to love. It's going to be hard to convince me otherwise.
Yeah.
That, being a Twins fan is a good idea. I mean, I think my first baby picture was in a Twins onesie. I'll
Yes.
probably be buried in a Twins cap.
There you
that
go.
kind of thing. So
This come from your dad?
This comes from my whole family. They're all
Yeah.
big Minnesota fans, and my grandpa again. He was a
Yeah.
big Minnesota fan back in the Harmon Killebrew days and things like
Yeah.
that. And so it's always been a part of our family. And baseball will probably always be a job that I would love to have, but I don't necessarily think it was my best sport broadcasting. I think basketball probably has been my best sport. It's the most challenging because of how fast-paced it can be, filling in with stories. And if you have to do a basketball doubleheader, it's a different beast altogether, man. Trying to reset and try to do another game right after finishing up one and keeping that same energy for another 3 hours.
Well, dude,
it's not easy.
Well, that's I mean, and on radio it's even more taxing because you've done a lot of TV work as well.
Yeah.
And I mean, was that your first gig in South Dakota? Were the SDPB things?
Yep.
You're calling state tournaments for SDPB. Now you're doing 4 games.
Yeah.
3 days in a row,
Yep.
and that's the way they've always done it. That's the way they still do it. And I'm in your boat on those quarterfinal Thursdays, calling 4 games on the radio in the quarterfinals. I did that for several years, and it's kind of almost like something you have to psych yourself up for.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine doing. But then I just did the winners bracket. I go from 4 to 2 to 1 by Saturday. I'm like, I can take a breather all day. So I don't know. What's that like?
Man, I mean, doing the state tournaments is a gauntlet. It really, truly is. Specifically because we've just gotten done doing the NSIC tournament in Sioux Falls just before
wow.
that, the Summit League basketball tournament, and then you dive into doing girls basketball, like you said, 12 games in 3 days, and then 7 days later you're doing 12 more boys games, and they're high energy. They mean everything to the kids and the families in the stands, and so
and people are watching.
Oh,
you know,
definitely.
people are watching.
Yep.
You can't
Yep.
sound like you're. And I've been guilty of this. I'll be honest, especially quarterfinal games that get. There's bad basketball sometimes, or there's blowouts, and if it's a blowout, it's like the 4th game of the day, and it's a blowout, and you're just like, I've listened back to my own stuff. I'm like, well, I can tell I was irritable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
And it's really difficult to keep up that energy and that positive energy. But I'm guessing you, just being who you are very good at that.
I mean, for me, if I'm doing a sporting event, I'm excited anyways.
Yes.
There's that natural anxiety that comes with, oh my gosh, do I have all my notes right?
Of course.
Is there anything I'm forgetting? Is my mic going to work when we hit play and go? That kind of thing. But honestly, I rely heavily, especially at those state tournaments, on my broadcast partner, Steve Toom. He is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to South Dakota athletics, and I kind of equate him similar to Craig Maddock and Mike Hendrickson in that way. If you bring up a name, a year, a town, he's got 5 minutes worth of stories that he can tell that is interesting. It's got relevance to what's going on, and he's a really good play-by-play guy too. And so having somebody like that who can be by my side to kind of take some of that weight off my shoulders. There's been years where he's been sick to the point where his voice isn't working and can't get out in the air, and I just carry the weight more. Same thing with me.
Sure.
I've had years where I can barely get a word out when the morning starts, and so he takes over, and we've just done a really good job of being able to balance that over the years and work well together.
I mean, again, for most people know this, but some people are new and they don't. In South Dakota Public Broadcasting, there's 3 classes of high school basketball, and there's 3 different channels of SDPB, and now streaming is everywhere. So every single game, including consolation bracket games, every single game of the state tournament is televised, broadcasted, and the same people do those games day after day in the sites that they're at. Because, of course, in South Dakota, you're at 3 different sites all at the same time. Class A is here, Class AA is here, and Class B is there. And how long has Steve been your partner?
So he pretty much every year, without the exception of maybe a couple tournaments where they had to split us up because they needed 2 play-by-play guys, that kind of thing. But really, just about, I think of the 16 boys tournaments I've done, he and I have done 14 of them together, I'm pretty sure. So
wow.
Yeah.
I want you to take me back to 2010. I think you said that was your first. One state basketball, and I just happened to kind of started to get to know you back then, and so we were kind of like in the same hotel, and And I was doing the games on the radio. You were doing them on SDPB. So actually, I remember just being around your first. What was that like for you? Because I'm sure, again, high school sports were a big deal in Sioux Falls. They were a big deal to you growing up. This is what you wanted to do. And at the age of, 21, 20?
Yep, 21.
You're now calling state tournament games on statewide TV.
Yeah.
Well, I mean...
It was intimidating, to say the least.
Yeah.
I think at the time I kind of had just this I need to get through it kind of mentality. Like, I'm going to do it. We'll see how it goes. If it sucks, I'll figure it out and move on to the next thing. If it's great, okay.
Yeah.
And I just kind of went in and said, I'm going to trust my knowledge of these teams that I've followed and gotten to know. I'm going to lean on my broadcast partner. I'm going to take as many notes into the games as I can.
Now, were these double A's?
Yeah, my first one was double A.
That had to help.
Oh, it helped a lot.
Because obviously you're a Sioux Falls kid. You went to a double A school, so you know these schools.
And then you have to separate yourself, too, because there are still some kids on the team that you knew either in middle school or you were growing up with, that kind of thing. And there were coaches that were literally your gym teachers, that kind of deal. And so it's like, okay, you have to keep your personal life out of the broadcast and just call the game as much as you can. I was telling Cordell earlier, I listened to some old audio from even back in 2008 when I was with the Moondogs, and just hearing my voice, how different it was, the way I kind of had a cadence throughout the game, it was excruciating. It was one of those things where I could barely get through listening to it. And so, I mean, I'm sure at the time I was really proud of it, really, like, here we go kind of thing, but going back and listening to some of that old stuff is hard.
I am mortified to ever listen to anything I did that early in my career, and I'm the exact same way. I thought at the time, hey, I'm pretty good, and people are telling you like, oh, you sounded great. I mean, people are nice to your face, but but I'm sure maybe I encountered this the other day with somebody who came up and somebody's been listening to me for a long time. And I think he meant my play-by-play, but he said, "You've improved a lot. You can take that one, you can take that one of two ways, and probably somewhere in the middle."
Yep.
But so, how did you get better?
Man, I mean, honestly, it's repetition, right? Like they say, if you want to get better at something or to become an expert, you have to do something 10,000 times or whatever. Yeah. Honestly, working in the Northwoods League, working with the Mankato Moondogs, spending 5 years
doing it every day.
You do it every single day. It's not like in football where, okay, you call a game, now you've got a week to sit over it, think about it, critique things, and then try it again.
Yeah.
You screw something up or you say something wrong tonight, you're going to fix it for tomorrow to make sure that you're better by the time Tuesday rolls around.
Yeah.
But baseball gives you an opportunity to call 100 games, 120 games, whatever it is, and then do it again the next season. So there's opportunity to work on yourself, correct yourself. And really, again, it was reaching out to people like Craig Maddox saying, hey, listen to this. And he'd say, hey, turn up your crowd noise. Make sure that people can hear the audio from the ballpark. Make sure they can feel like they're there and that they're not listening to a guy talking in a closet or something like that. Those little things, once you hear that from somebody else, clicks, and all of a sudden your broadcast gets better. Not necessarily because of the things you're doing, but because of the ambiance that you create with it, or the little details that you add in just to make it a little bit bigger and better. Those are things you just trial and error, you have to learn, but listening to the people who've done it and been there before you, it helps a lot too.
We could all learn a lot from a lot of people who came before us that did it really well. Craig's very good at, and he'd be minimalizing his voice and just letting the crowd and the action do the talking. Yep. So you've mentioned the Moondogs and 5 years of that, and eventually your love of baseball in general, and then the Sioux Falls Canaries came a calling.
Yep.
So 2014.
Yeah, 2014.
So how did this happen, and what was that like for a kid who's a huge baseball fan? I'm guessing went to a lot of Canaries games when you were a kid.
Well, I'd kind of heard when that the Canaries radio guy was leaving. He had gotten a job at Notre Dame, and so he was going to go.
Notre Dame?
I'm pretty sure that the guy that was before me had gotten a job there to kind of help out with some Notre Dame stuff.
Scott Beatty, right?
Yep.
Scott Beatty.
Yep. And then I think he's doing stuff with NBC Sports now and helping out with the Olympics. And
I know he was in Illinois,
so,
and I think that's his alma mater, doing a lot of stuff for the University of Illinois for several years. But anyway, so he got an opportunity. The job's open.
Yep. So the job's open, and my time with SDSU was kind of winding down. I realized I was wanting something different, and so I said, okay, I'm going to see what's in my hometown. The Canaries opportunity came up. I jumped on it, and they were nice enough to let me go through the whole interviewing process, and then I think throughout that they kind of realized that I might have a chance to be the guy. And as far as Mike Hendrickson told me, I think I was the only Sioux Falls native to ever get the radio job as the Canaries radio guy. So
Sure.
it was a badge of honor thing for me. Like I wanted to be that guy. I'd grown up watching games in that ballpark. I wanted a chance to kind of prove myself at the professional level and see if I could do it. So it was a really cool opportunity, and getting to have Steve Shirley, a former major leaguer, be the manager the first year, Ben Moore, who's a legend as a pitcher on that team, and Mike Myers was the pitching coach at the time on that squad too. So I got to be around some guys that had seen some things in baseball, been just about everywhere you could be in baseball. And again, it was a crash course, man. You wake up and realize that this isn't college sports anymore. You're dealing with people who are going to be more blunt. You're dealing with people who maybe aren't going to be as nice on a daily basis. And you have to learn to have a little bit of thicker skin because of that.
And these are guys you're traveling with sometimes.
Every single day. You just have to understand that they're professionals trying to keep their careers alive.
Yes.
It's not a college kid that's going to have another 3 years to figure things out.
Yeah.
These guys got today, and if it doesn't work, they may be going
There's
home.
no doubt about that. Like Mike Meyer as a person, one of the nicest guys I've ever met. If you run into him during a game or right after a game, might be a different story sometimes, depending on how that game went. And Steve Shirley was very much like that. Again, for those of you new to the Sioux Falls sports scene, Steve Shirley was the manager of the Canaries for several years, beginning circa 2007. They had been basically, you would know this as much as anybody, a laughing stock or a losing team for their first 15 years of existence. He brought in Mike, who's still the manager and managed them all the way to the championship series last year. Mike was a young guy who had just gotten done pitching in that league for St. Paul, and together they almost instantly turned the Canaries around. And in 2008, Steve's second or third year, they won their only championship they've won, and they continued to remain one of the best teams in the league for the next couple of years after that, including those. We don't talk about those Pheasants years when they were the Sioux Falls Pheasants. And so anyway, Steve was the easiest way I can explain him is Lou Brown.
100%.
Looks like Lou Brown from Major League. And, but you were around him a lot more than I ever was. Would you say that's...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He was just like a cut-of-the-earth kind of guy. I think he had farmland or something like that out in Montana or something.
New Mexico.
New Mexico, that's what it was, exactly.
That's where he spent the off-season.
Yep, he would be in New Mexico, and, man, by the end, Mike was kind of running the ship, but Steve still, he had his fingerprints all over that thing, and he had just kind of this gruff kind of attitude to him. Hardly ever saw him smile, but when he cracked a joke, he would laugh and bellow louder than anybody else. But that dude
But I'm
was
guessing
intense.
when you're talking about, you had a lot of players to deal with as well, and again, they're on the edge all the time about their careers, but you probably earned some spurs, cut some chops, or cut your teeth by dealing with Steve Shirley. I'm guessing.
Yeah, coaches in general, even if it's not the manager or Steve Shirley or somebody like that, sometimes they put their assistant coaches in front of you just so he doesn't have to deal with you. That kind of thing. It really was an education on how to deal with people on a daily basis. Whether it be just, they're having a bad day, how do you navigate around that or what? But you got to get your interviews, you got to get your lineup cards, and so you have a job to do, and you don't always want to get in their way, but sometimes you have to.
Well, yeah, you do. They might not be in a good mood, and they might not be excited to see you, and vice versa.
If you said something that wasn't maybe the kindest on the air the
they'd
night
hear
before,
about it?
they would hear about it, and
Wow.
they'd be the first to talk to you the next day.
Oh, boy.
Okay,
do you have a memory of that?
Well, not a specific one, but there were times where there'd be a pitcher who was obviously struggling, command issues, whatever, and I would be blunt and say, hey, you really was struggling tonight. This is a trend, and I would give stats to back it up kind of thing.
Sure.
Almost immediately after the game, I would either get a phone call or the next morning come in my office, that kind of deal, and we would talk about it, and I would have to defend my
Would Steve
reasoning.
sit you down with the player?
No. It was usually just
Steve.
me and Steve, and he'd be sitting there, just kind of like, we talked about this, that kind of thing.
But would you hold your ground and be like, Steve, I've got to, this is my job?
And I think he understood that, but he was one of those guys that was very much a player's manager.
Yeah.
He was going to go to bat and fight for his guys no matter what, even if it was a small thing. He wanted to have their back, and I respected that.
Now, that was your first year, and then you had 2 or 3 more after that, right?
I was there for 4 years. So I had Chris Patterson for a year, and then Mike Meyer.
And then Mike Meyer. They were terrible the whole time, weren't they?
They were awful.
So, how was that for you? Was it was it deflating, or were you just like, I get to call baseball? I'm sure it was a lot of both.
Yeah, 60% of it was like, man, I get to call baseball. I get to see the St. Paul Saints. I get to go to Chicago. I get to go to Winnipeg. I get to go to Kansas City and see the Monarchs.
And sometimes you get to enjoy yourself in these towns?
Yeah,
Good.
you get to have plenty of fun when you go out and you get to be around the players and all that. And so there was a lot of good that came with it. But I go from being with the Mankato Moondogs, who are a playoff team every year or in the championship every year, South Dakota State women, who are going to NCAA tournaments, going to WNIT Sweet 16s, things like that. Then going to the Canaries, it was learning how to still be a good broadcaster even through the dog days.
Yeah,
one of our fans told us, you're really good at polishing a turd. And it's like, okay, I get that. I get where you're coming from, but like they weren't that bad. There were days where, we had Jason Repko, a former major leaguer, on that roster, I think in 2015, 16. We had other major leaguers that were there. There were guys that were moving up the ranks and getting into affiliated baseball. They just didn't have the financial flexibility to go get the big name players.
Right.
And it hurt that the St. Paul Saints were there at the time too. Every player that got into independent baseball wanted to go play for the St. Paul Saints. They had a brand new stadium. They were the cream of the crop. They put on a great show every
they had
night.
the budget.
So,
they had the budget to have all the bells and whistles, both from buildings to people and manpower at their games, for sure, to the point where they're now the Twins AAA affiliate, and not just because they're right there, that helps, but they've been such a and I will just as a footnote to all that, Mike Meyer, your last year was his first, and it was tough sledding, but the Canaries eventually got new owners who invested, and long story short, they've had 3 playoff years in a row. Mike was always a good manager.
Yes.
He just needed the resources to bring in the best possible players, and now with St. Paul out of the league, Sioux Falls is, I'm not going to say they're the place, but they're definitely a place that players want to come play.
Absolutely.
He's a guy they want to play for in this league, and it took him several years to build that up. And
if you're a pitcher in independent baseball, or a guy who's finding himself on the outside of minor league baseball trying to find a way back in, Mike Meyer can fix you. I think that the perfect example of this is a guy who just pitched against the Twins the other night, John Brebbia. He was with the Sioux Falls Canaries in 2015. He was actually a Mankato Moondog too, so I knew him from back before that. But guy that had gotten drafted by the New York Yankees, worked up through their system, but there's only so far you can go in the Yankees system. You're either going to be a superstar, or you're going to get traded, or you're going to get cut. There's just not really a lot of room in that system to really grow and prosper. So he was a young guy that got cut and didn't have a team. Mike got his hands on him and was his pitching coach for a year in Sioux Falls, I believe. Either way, he had really good success here, and then he followed Mike down to Laredo for a year when he was with the Lemurs, and they won a championship there. Wow. Long story short, John Brebbia ends up getting signed by the Cardinals because of his success working with Mike Myers, ends up making it to the major leagues, and has had a career in the majors now for, I think, 8 years. He was in the Twins minor league system for a little bit this last year, but he finally got back with the Colorado Rockies, threw 3 straight batters, threw a shutout inning against the Twins the other night.
Oh, wow.
So pretty cool to see guys that came through the system, learn from a guy like Mike Myers, and take what they've learned from Mike and push it to the next level. So
you explained a little gap there, because he was with Steve Shirley for Steve's 8 seasons here, and then once Steve was fired, Mike wanted to be the manager, but they wouldn't hire the guy that was with Steve, so he was sent packing, and he lashed down in Laredo, Texas, where, as you mentioned, they won a title. I'm sure he wasn't a small part of that, and then he gets hired, I think, 2 managers later. A couple guys were there for only a year, and then he was the guy, and has been ever since. Okay, I got to tell one great Steve Shirley story. Have you heard this? I don't know if you know it's coming, but just in case anyone hasn't heard it, or if you forget it, it's like the all-time Steve Shirley story. Manager of this was back in the Pheasants days, 2011, 2012, something like that. I had just gotten done doing my 3 to 6 p.m. radio show on KWSN. I had decided that night, it's a nice night, I'll go over and watch a Canaries game. I'm wrapping everything up. The game has already started. I'm still at the station. And on my drive there, I'm listening to Steve Shirley being tossed out of the game in the first inning. Shirley is irate. Shirley is going, he's letting him have it. First inning, Steve Shirley is out of the game. And by the way, Brazil just scored a goal to go up 2-1 in the final minute or 2 of the game. So, that doesn't happen in soccer nor the World Cup that often. So that's why they're going crazy.
Go Brazil.
Steve, anyway, I get to the ballpark, so I've listened to Steve Shirley getting tossed. I go straight to the right field tiki bar, imagine that, and and I'm meeting a friend or two, and and I order a drink, and I turn around, and the first person I see as I turn around is Steve Shirley. And this is the manager of the Canaries. He's now got a Hawaiian shirt on. He's got a stogie in his hand, in one hand, and a beer in the other. And a co-ed by his side.
Of course.
And she is someone he knew or had been dating in New Mexico. And she was up there to come visit him, and just maybe because he's a manager, he wanted a little more quality time.
Start the off.
I don't know if it was a coincidence that he got thrown out of the game in the first inning, and he could. And I was kind of worried, like he knew who I was because I had interviewed him a couple times, and I was kind of worried that like I caught him, or like I might. Obviously, I was going to tell people. It's still a great story to tell.
Steve did not care.
He did not care.
No.
He was having a good time.
Yes, he was.
All right, so you've mentioned, the Jackrabbit women, because we're kind of bouncing back and forth here. You were on SDPB for a couple of state basketball tournaments, and you've mentioned Steve Emming, longtime voice, Jackrabbit men's basketball and football.
Yep.
Steps down. Tyler Merriam, who had already developed a pretty good name for himself as the women's guy, and of course he got the call already.
Yeah.
A bunch of great, illustrious women's seasons with Aaron Johnston, and so he gets elevated to Steve's job.
Yep.
And so you get the women's job, and I'm sure that was a coveted job.
Yeah. Yep.
So talk about grabbing that, what you were feeling at the time, and walking into that.
Well, so I got to be totally
2011,
honest.
by the way. 2011.
When SDSU first reached out to me, it was Tyler who reached out. I'll be honest, I didn't know who he was at the time. I'm getting a message on Facebook Messenger saying, hey, can you call me? And I'm like, I don't know who this guy is. I know he works at SDSU.
Okay.
I almost just blew it off. I was almost like, I'm not going to do this. I'm on a bus with the Moondogs. We're on our way to Thunder Bay. We were going up to Canada. And so I was like, I'll wait till I get back. Yeah. Figured we got to a bus stop and the guys got out. And I was like, I'll give him a call. Next thing you know, he's like, hey, this is kind of moving fast. Mike Hendrickson gave me your number. We would like for this to be a thing. Do you want to do it? And I said, yeah, let's do it. So I jumped on it right away, and as soon as the Moondog season was done, moved back to South Dakota and started getting ready for the Jacks. And my first game on the air was with Tyler, I think Scotty Quaz was there too, but we were at Illinois playing the Fighting Illini, a football game. They had me do sideline reporting for that game. And I think it was on 9/11, so it was like a big Memorial Day. They had all this stuff going on.
10-year anniversary.
Yeah, it was the 10-year anniversary, and so it was a pretty special day. Like I've still got the photo somewhere of that, of me on the sidelines, and you could see how just giddy I was to be a part of it and be wearing SDSU gear for the day. And that was kind of my crash course in it. And Tyler was an amazing mentor to me. He taught me not only how to be a better broadcaster, but how to grow up and be a better man and be a better person. There were things that I needed to grow up a lot on when I was at that stage in my life.
You were like 22.
Right. I mean, some of the kids that were playing for both the men's and women's basketball team at the time were kids that I had graduated with or my sister had played in traveling basketball teams with. Yeah. Ashley Heide, my dad coached her traveling basketball team back in the day. So it was a very eye-opening experience. I had a lot of maturing to do, but to cut my teeth there at SDSU and work with Tyler Merriam and get a chance to watch a true professional go about his craft every day and do it with professionalism, there's nobody better to learn from.
Not a surprise. He sounds like a pro on the air, that's for sure. Yeah. Rattle off some of you mentioned Ashley Heide already, some of the other greats that you got to call their games.
Jill Young, one of the all-time scorers in girls basketball in South Dakota. She went to SDSU. Yeah. She was a terrific guard. She ended up actually broadcasting with me for a year after she got done playing. So that was a good one. Jenny Sonnerborg, she's still playing professional basketball in Australia today. Katie Lingle, she had, after she was done, worked for John Thune's office for a while. I mean, kids that have gone on and done impressive things with their lives. And it was pretty. And Nate Wolters, you can't go without talking about him on the boys or men's side. When Tyler was having his first child, I had to go out to New York and call a tournament. Nate Wolters hit a half-court shot. It's still one of the best memories that I can remember. And then to watch him get drafted and go to the NBA and play for the Bucks and all that stuff was pretty cool.
How many of those games did you get to do? Those men's games?
It was a whole weekend, so
Okay.
there was like 3 games there against Hofstra, and there was a couple other teams out there too. So,
Where in New York was this?
Staten Island. So it
Okay.
was right like, in the big city. We got done with one game, and I don't even know if I was supposed to. Scott Nagy had a pretty big clamp on his guys to stay in the hotel, but I had caught wind that Grace Potter was playing at the Beacon Theater that night. So I hop on a train, go into town, go to it, and then I see my favorite guitar player. He comes on stage with Grace Potter, Warren Haynes, and I got to see them play live and snuck back on literally the last train back to the island before the night.
Yeah.
I almost got stuck in Brooklyn for a night, but made it back and got to call a game with the SDSU the next day, and just the little things that you get to experience when you're on the road with those teams and get to see different parts of the world that you would never see otherwise. And, it's pretty cool.
I mean, you saw, if you're watching on Sioux Falls Live, you saw JJ's eyes light up. We'll get to more of the music stuff. Get him going on music, and it's a whole different beast. Things go to another level. But most of the time you're dealing with Aaron Johnston. And so, I mean, again, you're talking about personalities and kind of legends, really. Steve Shirley is the only manager who ever can call himself a champion with the Sioux Falls Canaries to this point. And then you have Aaron Johnston, who was kind of, still pretty young, but already at that time incredibly well established. So what was he like to work with?
Well, I mean, so I've worked with a lot of different coaches over the years. We talked about Steve Shirley. I've worked with Kurtiss when I was with the Sioux Falls Storm, guys that can be intimidating personalities. Aaron Johnston, for whatever reason, was always the most intimidating to me. Just one of those guys that he had built success. He had a program that was, this is how it's going to be. His players were all kind of cookie cutter cutouts. They all came into the system knowing this is my role. This is how it's going to be. I felt like I was a fish out of water at that point. Like, I'm the outsider coming into this very tight-knit family of people at SDSU. Had to kind of earn my way into the family a little bit. And the interviews with AJ, because he's so hyper-focused on game day, sometimes didn't go the way I wanted them to go. They weren't as back and forth. He just kind of got his stuff done and said, okay, I got to go get ready. I respected that because he's obviously built a huge level of success with all that. But he was definitely one of the more intimidating coaches that I ever had to work with. And it takes a special individual, I think, to be around him when he's in his winning ways. But when he's off the court with his family, he's about as fun-loving, as gentle as they can be. And so I got to learn that side of him, and I wasn't as intimidated as time went on. But it was definitely I do not want to screw up in front of this guy kind of thing.
Definitely. So, again, sharpens your skills a little bit. Do you remember, what's the most memorable game you remember calling for the women? Whether it's be an amazing thing that happened at the end, or an incredible atmosphere, or
I mean, just getting into the old arena the final time before they moved over to the Denny Sanford Premier Center. That's where they had the old Summit League tournaments, and seeing that rivalry really get renewed between SDSU and USD. When that USD team was kind of coming on, I think Kelly Stewart was on the team at that time, and you had Nicole Werekamp, I think was her name, the kid from Australia. Seacamp. There you go. Thank you. But it was just really cool to see that get renewed and to feel 5,000 people screaming for their school, and that the heat that came inside that arena that day.
2014 semifinals, if you're keeping track.
It was about as good as it got. The WNIT tournament my last year, when we went down to El Paso, we ended up losing, but it came down to a last-second shot for Steph Pollock. She was from Pierre, South Dakota, had an open look. Had she hit it, we would have gone to the Elite Eight. It rattled in and out. But just being there and just watching the emotion go from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows, it was kind of a full-on encompassing experience of what it meant to be a sports broadcaster in that moment. But it really felt like the entire state of South Dakota was listening that night. It felt like everybody wanted to see the Jacks do well. So as far as like just raw anxiety and excitement going into the game, that one was
because it's kind of a standalone game.
It's about as big as it got for me at the time.
And by the way, I can't let this pass. So you did deal with Scott Nagy for a weekend.
Yes.
So how was that?
I mean, he's a good guy. I mean, I've got an earring. I've got kind of a different personality to how I do things. And he was very much, I want my guys clean cut, no earrings, none of that stuff. I forgot to take an earring out before I got on the bus one time. And he made sure that one of the assistant coaches reminded me, you're not supposed to do that. So there was a way to do things with Scott.
Wow.
There was a way to do things, and I tried to respect that as much as I could. Genuinely did not want to rub people the wrong way and create problems when I didn't have to, that kind of thing. But there were just times where I was like, okay, I'm dealing with people that are dealing with bigger issues on a daily basis than I probably need to be worrying about. They've got other things going on. He was an intense dude, man. I mean, if you're at that level, the pressure of recruiting, dealing with boosters, dealing with whatever's going on, there's a million things that are pulling these guys in different directions, and then their own personal lives. I mean, on top of that. But yeah, there were days where I was like, man, I don't know if any of these coaches like me, that kind of thing. But you get through it.
I'm sure they did in their own way.
Yeah.
Did you get to sit courtside to watch Nate Wolters play?
Yeah.
Okay, so just fill in the blank. Sitting courtside to watch Nate Wolters play was blank.
Is different. I had never seen a college player in South Dakota at that time play like that as consistently every single day. I kind of knew who he was as a player with preparation because I would walk into the gym and see him shooting, whether it be we get off the bus with the women's team at midnight and we're getting ready to go home, he was in the gym shooting, or if it was at 8 a.m. when I got to my office in the morning, he was in the gym shooting. He was just one of those guys that I think if they would have given him the choice to put his bunk bed in the gym, he probably would have lived there, that kind of thing. There's just certain dudes that you can tell when they go about their business that they're going to be different. He was as quiet as they come. You could almost never get a word out of him. You could almost never feel him in the room, but when he stepped onto that court, everybody's eyes were on him, and he was just a different beast.
And boy, and he could handle it.
Oh, he could.
Because he knew it. We're kind of going in your different stages here, your different teams. You had done Jackrabbits 2011 to 14, Canaries 2014 to 2017, and then you got a chance to take over, as you mentioned a lot earlier in this conversation, for the only Hall of Famer, the only broadcaster in the Indoor Football Hall of Fame. Rich Rosty, just a larger-than-life personality. Still around, still an awesome guy. In fact, I saw him here at Gibbs when there was a roast of who was it? Mick, Gary, Craig Maddock, and Mike Henriksen. Were you there that night? Oh, you would have loved it. Anyway, Rich is still doing well, but he decided to hang it up around 2021. In fact, he did a mid-season, didn't he?
He got inducted into the Hall of Fame and then said, I'm done.
He had his ceremony, and he didn't announce it at the thing. I was there. That was the one season where I was the PA announcer for the Storm, so I watched it, and he was showered with all of the love from the Storm fans, waved to the crowd, and that it was kind of like literally his walk off into the sunset. And so, first of all, when did you find out that Rich Rosty's retired and we want you to call the games?
Well, that's a whole other story in it by itself. I don't know if you knew who Tyler Peterson was. He was a guy who was a clubhouse manager for the Storm for a long time, and then ended up working his way into the front office doing sales.
I think I met him
really
time or
well
two.
For himself. He was kind of Kurtiss Riggs' right-hand man in the office on a daily basis.
And by the way, 2021, at this point, I think the Storm had won all 11 of the indoor league. Again, for those of you who are new here, the Sioux Falls Storm ruled their league for about 15 years.
Well, and the crazy part is this new ownership group came in 2019. They're gearing up for the 2020 season, investing all of their money into it, and then boom, COVID hits. They lost just so much momentum at that point with all of that. And I think having to sit around for a year probably put a bug in some other people's minds that, okay, what are we looking at for future with media, things like that. And there was a little bit of butting of heads, I think, at one point where Rich was saying, I want to go this way. Ownership was saying, we want to go this way. And I think Rich said, all right, this might be the time for me to step down.
You're talking about like radio? Like whether to stay on the radio or not?
Streaming, that kind of thing, how they wanted to utilize those things.
Because the Canaries, by the way, Canaries, Storm, and Skyforce have all gone away from the radio. None of them are on the radio. I mean, that used to be unthinkable, but that's what the streaming age has done for us, and budgets are tight. And if you can see it, then that's the only one that still does it is the Sioux Falls Stampede, and good on the Stampede for keeping Jimmy O's voice on the radio.
Just got named Broadcaster of the Year, which is pretty cool. So that's awesome.
But okay, so they're transitioning. Rich doesn't want to call streaming only anymore. He's a radio guy, and so he wanted to stick around for his thing, and then which is probably a good thing to do. So now you're taking over mid-season.
And so they've got a week, essentially, to figure out who's going to take over or if they're just not going to have a broadcast for that week, whatever they were going to do. They reached out, I think, to Jay Elson and said, hey, do you know anybody? And Jay said, well, JJ does, minor league sports. He's free right now. Give him a call. So I was like, all right, get a phone call. I think it's a Tuesday morning. I'm with my girlfriend at the time. We're sitting in a hot tub, just kind of having our morning coffee. My phone rings, again, a number I don't know. And I pick it up and I said, hello. And he said, hey, this is Tyler Peterson. I'm in Nashville right now. I don't have a whole lot of time. I'm on vacation with my wife, but I wanted to talk to you about something. I said, okay, this is a weird way to get the conversation going. But then he explains to me, Rich is going to be done. And my first thought was, I hope he's okay. I hope there's no health issues, anything like that. So no, it's nothing like that. He's just going to retire. We need somebody to take on the last 4 games of the season. I said, okay, I'd be happy to come in. I'm not doing anything this summer. Let's go for it. And things snowballed quickly. They realized that I was going to be excited about it. They knew that I knew some history of the team and all that, and so brought me back for the next year just as a broadcaster. The year after that, I got salaried and actually came in on as a full-time basis. But yeah, that was a really good relationship. It was fun to get to do indoor football and experience the circus that goes with all that stuff. Yeah. But to add something else to the resume and say I tried that, I did that, it was pretty cool. Again, it's not fun stepping into a Giants' shoes in that situation, but to get to have that opportunity, go to one championship even in a loss with the Storm was pretty cool, and to be there for Kurtiss's final year, that's one that I'll never forget.
Hey, you just mentioned Kurtiss. I mean, again, we've established you've worked with some legends here. Aaron Johnston, Steve Shirley, for a weekend, Nate Wolters and Scott Nagy. Now it's Jeff Fylling, which we've already gone through. But man, Kurtiss Riggs, describe the Kurtiss Riggs experience from inside the football walls.
I would say if you get a chance to talk to Kurtiss one-on-one, again, one of the funniest people you'll ever meet.
Oh, you ain't kidding.
Stories to tell you for days.
Yes.
I mean, if you ever get a chance to ask him about Friday Night Lights, he'll tell you about all the crazy things that happened on set of that movie and everything.
Right.
He was, for those who don't know, Kurtiss, right after college, was a left-handed quarterback who had gone over to Europe to try to play in the European NFL League for a little bit. Wasn't a whole lot of excitement over there, so he came back, and his agent, I believe, got him in touch with somebody at the movie studio saying, hey, we need a left-handed quarterback who'd want to come in and try out for this movie we're making. Dennis Quaid, Jamie Foxx, all this stuff. And so he went and ended up being Dennis Quaid's body double for the old lumbering quarterback guy that's kind of at the end of his career. And the way he explained it, they would just take hits all day. Just get beat up, get sacked, get blown up, that kind of thing. But got to be on a movie set, got to be a part of it. And I don't know if any of his takes actually made the movie, but it's pretty cool that he got to be able to do that. So, I mean, stories for days.
Have we talked about that with Kurtiss on the show yet, Cordell? Okay, we haven't. Well, good.
Ask him about it.
We will.
Yeah.
Thank you. Because I've heard him tell the story, but apparently it wasn't. My mind's a blur, so that was off the air. But in person as a coach, was he same thing as Johnston and Shirley in the sense of, hey, they have their good days, they have their bad days, they've got bigger fish to fry, you can't be personally. I'm just guessing. I'll let you say it in your own words.
Oh, I mean, he was as intense when it came to coaching as it could possibly get. He built an army there. I mean, all of his assistants were guys that played for him, Hall of Famers. They knew the system in and out. And so by the end, practices were kind of ran by the assistants, but Kurtiss still had that whistle, and he would get in people's faces if he needed to. Having Lorenzo Brown as your quarterback makes the job easy because he knows the offense inside and out. He's basically an offensive coordinator to begin with.
Right.
And then he got to bring in his son, Peyton, to be a coordinator at the end, too. Yep. So you got to see that father dynamic that went with it, too. And I think it softened him a little bit. Not making him a soft coach, but I think it just made him not have to be so hard all the time. He was able to kind of be the dad and be a coach at the same time, and so there's just a different dynamic.
Interesting. I thought he would just be purely coach with Peyton.
And for the most part, I would say that's true, but there were moments that you could tell that he was like, I get to coach next to my son, and you could feel that softness. Like,
that's great.
This is one thing I want to do before I'm done with
and
the
Peyton's
Storm.
a chip off the old block.
Peyton is exactly like his dad. I mean,
he is.
I would be surprised if he's not in coaching 20 years from now. So, I mean, and he's done great with the Arizona Rattlers.
He has.
Will continue to have success down there, and hopefully we'll see him here in Sioux Falls before too long.
I meant personality as much as
absolutely. Yep.
As much as
maybe he doesn't have the stories to tell quite yet.
No, not quite. And then we can circle it back to Augustana. because the Storm they're done for now, or if not ever.
Yeah.
And you're kind of near the end of that, and we don't have to really do a post-mortem or a play-by-play of that. But that's tough, it's a bummer for the city. It's been weird the last couple summers to not have the Sioux Falls Storm around.
I feel bad for the fans that were diehards that went to every game, went to every road trip, all the viewing watch parties that don't get to be a part of that scene anymore. To a degree, I feel bad for Todd Tryon. He became the commissioner of that league, brought the league office to Sioux Falls, and the identity of that league was kind of centered around their best team being in the same city that the commissioner's role was in, and that kind of all got blown up. And so I hope someday cooler heads prevail. I hope someday they're able to come back to the table and figure things out, whether that means new owners for the Storm, new leadership in the Denny Sanford Premier Center.
Yes.
I don't know. But
place to play is going to be a big
take.
issue.
Yeah, they got really close to playing at Augie in
I remember
the
that.
Midco hockey facility, but there was some insurance issues, the way that it was all going to work out, that it fell apart at the last moment. The ownership group did just about everything they could to try to find a way. It just unfortunately didn't work out. So, and for me, the hardest part was I had to write the press release that said, hey, we're shutting down operations. And being a part of that front office every day, putting your heart and soul into it, there's almost that feeling like, man, I'm the one who's going to have to let everybody down now. And so there's a little bit of, heavy days after that where you're just like, what are we going to do now? That kind of thing. A lot of anger. There were people that were really upset about it, and I felt bad for the fans. At the end of the day, though, if the fans would have shown up in big numbers and continued to support, and the numbers hadn't deteriorated on a game-by-game basis, we may not be talking about this situation.
Well,
I
think you could speak to this because you've been with two of the four. The Stampede aren't professional, but they feel like it. Teams in this town through different waves, and just I'm still living it as part of the Canaries staff right now. It's just people in this town the attendance is down with every team, even the Stampede a little bit. When it's not Wiener Dog night, they still have the best attendance in the league. They might be the exception, but in general, it's just harder now.
It is
with people's attention, and you not only have been living on this earth, but and seeing the way. Society has evolved into what people do with their time and money, their free time and their time and technology. But you've been in this town the whole time where people's, there's more things to do. Music is a part of it.
Yes.
They'll love it.
Oh.
When people ask me about the Canaries, I'm like, hey, we're doing all right, man. But we've got great owners, and it's not like it's dead out there. But, it's not the 90s because we're not the only game in town. No. We're competing with a free music show over there. And my owners are probably mad that I'm mentioning it. But, by the way, the Canaries are bringing music over there with tacos and tequila. And they're going to bring the Lolly Cooler. Lolly Cooler. I'm thinking of my boss, Patrick Lally. Anyway, I'm babbling. But, the Sioux Falls has changed, and it's just been harder for everybody in sports, the high schools as well.
Absolutely. When my grandpa moved
Augie,
here to be a radio...
You see it at Augie, too.
Yep. When my grandpa moved here to be a radio DJ, there were 75,000 people in Sioux Falls.
Yeah.
We're 270,000 or something like that now.
Yeah.
It's grown exponentially, and it continues to grow. And with that, you're going to have people getting pulled in 100 different directions. Youth sports, going to watch T-ball, instead of going and sitting at a ballpark. You also have,
There's just more of them, right?
Right.
I'm okay.
I think I'm good right now. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's just one of those deals that you have to understand that the times have changed. I think COVID changed things. I think the evolution of social media. Back in the 90s, you didn't have a cell phone in your hand to go and get a score update, right? You had to go to the game to witness it, or maybe catch highlights on the news at the end of the night if you get lucky. But generally, you didn't get that instant gratification. Now, there's a game day box score that you can pull up instantly and check the scores. You can watch the live stream. Makes it easier for fans to gain access to your team, but it also means that they're maybe not as excited about coming out to the ballpark. And so it's a real catch-22. What do? Do you stay in the past with your media and not give fans that full experience so that you can get people into the ballpark? Or do you move with the times and risk having to kind of reinvent the way you invite people out?
Yeah. Well, I've got a point about that with Augie in a second, but at least we got guys like Cordell there, the guy in his late 20s.
Yep.
He's going out. He's enjoying it. You can't beat a real live experience
absolutely.
with professional sports and professional baseball, and hopefully the team provides good enough food and music and entertainment to keep the evening bouncing for you. You want to bring your friends to it, all that stuff. it's incumbent upon the franchises to do the best they can to make the experience the best it possibly can be.
Yep.
It's got to be interesting for you at Augie calling games on stream when there could be a feeling of are we taking people away from the game because now they can see every game? But everybody streams now, so it's just like either do it or not. The Canaries are streamed. I mean, it's just that's the age we live in. That's a source of revenue, and it just kind of feels like that's like when everybody used to have you had to be on the radio, right? If you're a team in town, now you got to be streaming.
Yeah, it's a little bit different these days. I mean, radio
and it gives broadcasters like you an opportunity.
Yes,
that's how you got in with Augie.
I think as long as sports is around on campuses, there will be some sort of broadcast that happens. It may not be radio, it may not be TV, it might be a live stream. Who knows what they'll have in the future? Holograms or something. Who knows? Who knows? But
hopefully not AI.
Right? Yeah, we don't need that. I think honestly, though, sports is one of those places that would be very hard to bring AI into the picture, especially in the broadcasting sense, because you can't have a robot generate thoughts and feelings in a second and tell you exactly what's going on with 100% accuracy.
We'd like to think so.
Broadcasters probably can't do that either, but they can get close. And hearing a voice that is the same, hearing a voice that's a part of the identity of those schools, it's important. I mean, when you grow up listening to the Twins, you remember Herb Carneal, you remember John Gordon, you remember Corey Provis now as the TV guy. There's guys that are going to be around that become part of the identity of sports, and hopefully as long as humans still want to watch and be a part of that sports world, we will have a job as broadcasters too.
When did you get roped into Augie?
2014, the
it's been
tape
that
delayed
long.
games is when I started doing it. Joe Beltram, who was a director at Midco Sports at the time, had this Augie cart that they would do where they would make live streams, or not live streams, but tape delayed games. So I would go out and start doing those. They would do high school games as well, and that's kind of how I got involved with Midco as well.
So we'll start with Augie. We'll land the plane with Augie. We started with Augie. We'll land the plane with Augie. You got to be a part of so you got to call plenty of games for a 2016 national title team.
Yep.
And speaking of legends, Tom Billeter. So let's just go straight into him and what he was like to deal with.
He was an awesome coach. I mean, he was one of those guys that I think was always worried that things were going to blow up and just get destroyed in a moment. He was trying to find a way to win a game no matter what.
Frantic.
Yes.
I would call Tom a very
way.
frantic coach.
There was one game I was sitting on the sidelines, and I was in a commercial break because we were in a video replay review. They were just watching a flagrant foul, I think, that had happened or something along those lines.
Yeah.
But anyways, Tom comes up to the official scorer and the scoreboard keeper and just starts going, "You guys got to help me out here. I'm fighting for my job. I don't know if we're going to make it through the night," that kind of thing. Like trying to find any way to get an edge on Northern State or whoever they were playing and get a win. But his competitive nature always came out. And he did it, I'm sure, kind of tongue-in-cheek too, being funny because he is a funny guy. But there were definitely some lighthearted moments, but there was always that, man, he's really gung-ho about figuring out how to get this going. And he had such a good program in 2016. I mean, that basketball team was stacked.
Well, you got to watch some Dan Jansen courtside.
Dan Jansen was incredible. I mean, that game that they had against, I think it was Iowa, where they went in and they had no business beating them. And he
beat
hits that
Iowa.
last-second shot to beat Iowa. That's about as cool as it gets. I got to call C.J. Ham games when he was at Augustana in his junior and senior seasons. So, yeah, that was, I think, my first game was one of C.J.'s best games at Augustana. Ran up and down the field. And at the time, I'm like, this guy's a really good running back. There's no way they're going to take a bowling ball in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
And he goes and paves his own way. Gets
willing to play fullback,
practice squads, fullback, whatever it takes. He reinvented himself to get to the NFL, and that may be one of the things that I kind of hang on my hat the most is just being able to say I called games for arguably one of the best South Dakota college football players ever to make it to the NFL.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's hard to argue with. Yeah. Did you ever get a chance to meet him in person much, or was that a kind of the deal where you're
not
just
until he got to the pro level?
Okay.
When he came back and started doing some of the youth camps at Augustana, things like that, start to just introduce myself and say hi or whatever. But no, I never really, I didn't interact with the players a whole lot back then. I've tried to get more involved and meet them and kind of learn who these guys are as I've gotten older. It just helps, I think, them get more relaxed when we're doing interviews and stuff like that, for them to know who they're talking to instead of just some strange guy that comes up. But so I didn't really get a chance to meet him all that much, but that was pretty cool.
And then OJ. I mean, he was CJ's coach then, still is the Augustana coach now.
Yep.
And so you've dealt a lot with that guy. And I mean, again, we just go down to I'll put OJ in a legends category.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's now the winningest coach in Augie history. Yep. Nobody's won the volume of championships or winning percentages as he has, and I mean, but a remarkable human.
He's an incredible human being. He's as nice as they come. He runs about as tight of a ship as they come.
Okay.
That is militaristic when they go over there. I mean, they know exactly where they're going to be, when they're going to be there. The players line up, and they buy into that system 100%. I mean, he's had some coaches that have come and gone the last couple of years, but that system keeps rolling. They've got depth top to bottom at every position. I don't know that, at least right now, that there's a coach that I respect more than Coach OJ. He is as nice of a guy. He's treated me better than any coach has as far as broadcasters are concerned. But to be able to be around him and watch him continue to build that success at Augustana is impressive.
Okay, we can leave on a move it forward type of thing.
Yeah.
They had a great team last year, started 9-0.
Yep.
Then they lost 2 games, and what a cruel, cutthroat system the Division II playoffs are.
Yeah.
And they were a top 5 ranked team in the country, and they got shut out of the playoffs.
Yep.
But what about 2026?
I think they've got a lot of potential to be great. They've lost some players the last 2 years that were real centerpieces on defense specifically that they're going to have to fix. It'll be interesting to see how that all goes, but they've got a quarterback now who's a year older that's been developing well in that system. They've got a ton of wide receivers that are just as athletic as it gets at the Division II level. Their schedule's not easy, though, this year. They're going to play Central Missouri week 1 on a Thursday night in Missouri, so they're going to have to travel for that. They've got to travel to Duluth this year. There's a couple other places that they got to play that won't be easy. They're used to playing 1 o'clock kickoff games at Kirby Over Stadium, so night games is not something that they're terribly used to. And from what I understood, I thought the NSIC was getting rid of, or at least trying to distance themselves from night games.
Okay.
So to have that back on the fold this year and having a few more was a little bit of a surprise, but I'm excited. It's going to be great. It's going to be fun, and I'm eager to see what this version of Augustana football looks like this year.
And you'll be back on the radio doing it this time.
I don't know what format it'll be. I know I will be broadcasting with them.
Okay.
And there will be, I think, some information coming out from the Augustana media department sooner than later about all that. But they're still working out some details on how that will all shape up.
By the way, radio versus TV. How would you characterize calling just from calling the games?
Yeah, radio is very different. I would say from calling TV, although you can do it in a similar way. Radio is every detail, talking about the color of the jerseys, the piping on their uniforms to make sure the person at home has a visual picture in their head. You can let the TV tell a little bit more of the story when you're doing a TV broadcast. The hard part is when you're live streaming, like with Augie, we have different formats, radio, TV, live stream, all at once. And so you kind of have to do it just one way to make it work for all three. And so it gets to be a little complicated, and sometimes the radio side loses a little bit on that because you have to make a good product for TV that's not overwhelming. You don't want the fans to be like, this guy just won't shut up, that kind of thing.
Yes,
so
I do know how that goes. I do.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's a delicate kind of balance, trying to find a good rhythm on TV when you're doing all three at once.
Well, fortunately, you're well versed in all of it. We never even got to the fact that you've just been doing games on Pentagon streaming for years, and even you work in plenty of sports that you don't call. Sometimes you're just out at the Pentagon or Augie. If it's a game in Sioux Falls, JJ might be there courtside with a headset.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the beauties of living in Sioux Falls, and I've always said the sports bubble is going to burst someday in Sioux Falls, but I'm going to ride this wave as long as I possibly can. We get TV networks that are huge. Peacock, the big four-letter word network, every once in a while shows up to do games. You get CBS Sports doing the Summit League tournament.
And you find your way to work for them.
Yeah, I mean, and once you get in once, as long as you don't screw things up monumentally, they're going to call you back the next year and be part of the crew. So they get local camera guys to run those events. They get local guys to do stats. Brad Newitt, his son Sam, who's just an incredible human being, so smart. He does a lot of their stats for those TV broadcasts as well. So it's pretty cool that we get these friends and people that we've worked with around the community that get chances to be part of a bigger broadcast, see how they work with 2 trucks rolling in instead of a little van production, that kind of thing. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Well, I think we got to end this somewhere.
Sure.
You and your dad are two of my favorite people in this city, not just in the sports in this city. Pat, his father is at almost every Canaries game.
Yep.
Been a scorekeeper for how long out there?
I got him started doing scorekeeping my second year with the Canaries, so 2015, and he's been there pretty much every.
He took you to games, and now he gets to kind of be there for all of them. And I mean, it seems to me like one of your favorite things to do is to go to live music shows, not just here, but it seems like it's New Orleans a lot, and wherever there's somewhere somebody you like. That's like your jam.
Yeah, I mean, and thank you for bringing that up. It's pretty cool that I get to share these moments with my dad, and not everybody gets that chance.
Yeah, you're like, not everybody's best friends with their dad.
Yep. And I mean, let's be honest, he and I butt heads. We're not always best friends, but I would say more often than not, we are doing stuff together. We're laughing with each other. Grew up going to baseball games, listening to the Allman Brothers on van rides up to the Twins game at the Metrodome or whatever. So I was indoctrinated at a very early age on what good music sounded like. Took me to shows, snuck me into where Dada Gastropub is now. It used to be the Sioux Falls Brew Pub years ago. And I was 10 maybe. He would sneak me in. He knew the bouncer at the bar, and he'd be like, he's coming in to watch the band. He's not going to drink. He's not going to do any of that stuff. And bouncers would just say, okay, yeah, you're Pat's kid. Go on in. And so like it got to a point where they all knew that he had the best intentions for me to be around good music, be around sports as much as I could. And it really pushed me to the direction that I wanted to be a good human being too. I mean, when he stopped working in insurance after 25 years or whatever, went to go work at a daycare just because he loved kids. He was a youth coach for years, coaching traveling basketball teams, baseball, all that stuff. So just a genuinely good human being. And I mean, going to concerts has given us a chance to really hone in on what our relationship looks like as adults now. When you're a kid with your dad, there's that larger than life figure who's telling you to brush your teeth and get to bed and get good grades, all that stuff. But at some point, when you turn 21, 22, that kind of, at least for me, shifted a little bit. And it started being, hey, do you want to go to a concert with me? I can't find anybody to go with. Your mom doesn't want to go. It's just down in Omaha. And it got to be, we would drive Kansas City. We would drive to Chicago, we'd drive to Minneapolis, wherever we could find a show for a night and just hang out. And Mom would worry about us sometimes because we'd drive back afterwards and it'd be getting into Sioux Falls at 4 a.m, getting to school the next day and finding a way to make that work. But I mean, it's shaped who I am to this day. I still go to concerts. He and I are going to go to Red Rocks at the end of July, see the Tedeschi Trucks Band. Derek Trucks, who was the longtime guitar player for the Allman Brothers, might be the best guitar player on the planet right now, honestly. But we're going to go see them for 2 nights, take a drive out to Colorado, see some friends. And
Red Rocks? Did you say Red Rocks?
Red Rocks.
Oh, baby. Wow. I still haven't done that.
Music mecca. If you ever get a chance to go to Red Rocks, even just to go walk around there, not even for a concert, you're going to be glad you did.
I've done the walk around thing, but you got to see a show there. That's still on my bucket list.
I'll tell anybody who goes, make sure that you bring your walking shoes with you because there's a parking lot down at the bottom of Red Rocks.
That's right.
And you have to earn your seat to get there. You have to walk and hike up a hill, and if you're not used to the elevation, it will kick your butt. But it is the best venue you can possibly see music in. Seeing the Denver skyline out in the distance, these beautiful rock structures all around you, and 5,000 fans screaming and loving every minute of it. Like you feel an energy that's there that's different. You get to be a part of a place where the Beatles have played, these legends of music have walked, and you can just feel that it's one of those places that if you're a music fan, you've got to go to because it speaks to the heart and soul of what music really is.
Yeah. Just follow the man on social media, JJ Hartigan, because he's going to be on the road here and there going to some shows, and that's a guide for you. And you like, you like bands a lot of people haven't heard of, but to you are just like, wow, this is good on the ears.
Oh, absolutely.
And your mom's a pretty cool lady as well.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Thank you for saying that. She worked in state government, federal government. She was an Army reservist. She was a 1994 South Dakota Army Reservist of the Year. Retired from federal government employment a few years back. She joined Homeland Security back in 1999, something like that. So right before 9/11 happened, and that whole job changed after all that stuff. It got harder. It got stressful. It changed everything about the way people deal with stuff in the United States, and a lot of people would have been hardened by that.
Yeah.
She found it as a way to motivate her, found a way to make herself a better person. Wow. She really honed in on the naturalization part of it. Homeland Security was immigration and naturalization services. She wanted to find ways to get people to move to the United States, to feel like a citizen, be a citizen, and to do it the right way. And so she dedicated her life to that stuff and still does to this day. I mean, she goes out and she's an activist. She tries to teach kids what it means to be a good voter, a good citizen. Back when we were kids, there was an initiative called Kids Vote, where adults would volunteer their time and go into the school systems and teach people what the executive branch did, what the judicial branch did, all of this stuff. And she really had a lot of passion with that. So to see her succeed with those things, to have her kind of teach me what it meant to be a good human, a good steward in my community, I think that goes a long way to speaking of the person she is. I mean, she was the president of our church. She's done just about anything you could to prove that she's a good human being. And I'm getting a little emotional, but she raised us right.
She sure did. I see her and Pat at your sister's softball games. I'm in your sister's softball league, and you're in the. I'm sure they're fixtures at your Sioux Falls City Beer League softball
they bring their
games.
Vuvuzelas out and honk their horns, and
so it's hard not to find the Hartigans out and about in the city of Sioux Falls, as it has been the case your whole life. Well, everybody around who's met you knows you're a good guy, and now people have a better idea of how that came to be.
Thank you.
I'm certainly glad to have met you and been a part of the journey, and thanks for talking about it today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people are going to realize after hearing this that I really take heart in the people that have helped me along the way. I really respect the people who have brought me here. You're another one of those people who have always had a kind word to say, an arm around my shoulder, just words of encouragement as these things go on. So I really appreciate your friendship and the ability to do these things on a daily basis.
Bet, my pleasure. I remember meeting you, and you just went to Shadow Craig and I back at KWSN for a time or two. You've done well.
Thanks.
Good luck.
Appreciate it, man.
For J.J. Hartigan, voice of the Augustana Vikings, and video producer Cordell Wright, a big thanks to the folks here at Gibbs Sports Bar on the east side of Sioux Falls. Happy hour, and cheers.
You need anything else, John?
No, I think I'm good, Greg. I think I'm going to tap out.
All right. Have a good night.